And hello again from WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. My name's Josh Manning. I am Deputy Managing Editor for Assignment over at the Western Journal. Joining me today, Michael Austin, one of our reporters at the Western Journal.
Hello.
And on my right, Chief of Logistics for the Western Journal.
Is that what it is now?
I don't know. We make up a new title for him every time.
That should be a thing.
Chief of
every
Logistics,
week.
Assistant to the Chief of Logistics, Brian Chai. Thanks for joining us today on a Monday where some interesting things going on. We have got a nice mixture of news and commentary for you today. We're going to be talking about new policy coming from Biden's DHS, has to do with social media and domestic terrorism. We're also going to be talking about everybody's favorite COVID doctor, Anthony Fauci. And then we're going to get into some entertainment news with Brian Chai. And that news is not going to be that it looks like NBC is going to cancel the Golden Globes. That is not the news you'll be hearing, though I delight in that because all of these stupid holier-than-thou actors said, oh, diversity, diversity, diversity. There's not enough diversity, and now they got their stupid little show canceled. Good for them. But that's not what we're talking about today. I want to lead off with a piece we saw on NBC News originally. The Western Journal is working on this right now, doing a little research on it. We're putting the piece together. The Department of Homeland Security, according to NBC News, has begun implementing a strategy to gather and analyze intelligence about security threats from public social media posts, according to DHS officials. Now, if that doesn't bother you, it should. The piece goes on to say the focus is not on identifying the posters of such content, but rather on gleaning insights about the potential security threats based on emerging narratives and grievances. So far, DHS is using human beings, not computer algorithms, to make sense of the data, officials say, but we know that is probably not going to be the case forever. DHS officials have been consulting with, guess what, who? Social media companies, private companies, and nonprofit groups to analyze open source social media data. Sarah Peck, a DHS spokeswoman, said, don't worry. She said, all DHS efforts against threats are carried out in close coordination with our privacy, civil rights, and civil liberties experts and consistent with the law. Thank you so much, Sarah. So, this caught my eye for a couple of reasons. First off, the idea that the federal government is sweeping up a bunch of data is not really a new thing. We started that with the Patriot Act back after the 9/11 attacks. And conservatives and civil liberties folks, conservatives were on both sides of the Patriot Act. Civil liberties folks were not. They were against it specifically because of things like this. They saw into the future and knew that the government would have a very hard time once it got its hands on our data, letting it go. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't bother me. It does not reassure me that they're looking at narratives and not people. That doesn't reassure me at all. Because a terrorist, finding a discrete terrorist, that's probably, identifying who a terrorist is, probably not that hard. Identifying a potentially dangerous narrative, well, good gosh, you could identify almost any narrative as dangerous if you take it far enough, which I think is exactly what DHS, the deep state, Biden in general are wanting to do. It looks to me, fellas, like this is a tool, really not to root out terrorism, but a tool to detect and then suppress people who disagree. People who disagree with the status quo, whatever it might be. What do we think?
1,000%. It's one of those situations, it's one of those like thought experiments where like, okay, if we assume the government is pure and benevolent, then actually this is probably a pretty good thing. Of course, that is a wild assumption that has never borne to be true in the history of time. So yeah, my concerns are way up there with this kind of stuff because, like you said, Josh, where's the, like when identifying a person as a person of interest or a potential threat, that's one thing. When you're almost like ascribing what you think this narrative will lead to, because that's the problem with narratives, right? Like if DHS flagged me because I said, man, I hate Josh Manning. Like, are they going to just assume that, like, I'm going to come into the office and, try to murder you?
No, they'll assume you're one of millions of people out there.
But that's the narrative. Maybe we should investigate Josh Manning.
Yeah.
But yeah, it feels like, if I'm like joking or just a comment like that is made, I feel like it can definitely be taken the wrong way, and especially in regards to certain political leanings, I guess. Like, if someone on the internet starts talking about, I'm trying to think of a conservative, like pro-life, and has some disparaging remarks about Planned Parenthood, several other people jump in also blasting Planned Parenthood. Are these people now in danger of being investigated because DHS thinks they might attack a Planned Parenthood?
DHS then makes the argument, oh my gosh, we've seen people shoot abortion doctors before. These people are ginning up anger and hatred toward abortion doctors, and my gosh, what if somebody goes out and shoots one? We better shut the group down.
Yeah, a system like this is wide open, especially since it's, they're using social media as the means to get this information. It's wide open to manipulation. We have all sorts of misinformation campaigns that are on social media all the time. A lot of them are like false flag operations that are meant to make the other side, and this happens, across the political spectrum. One example, how on I believe it wasn't Reddit. What is like the dark
4chan.
web Reddit? 4chan.
You're going to talk about Pepe.
The OK sign.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
The establishment media completely believes that is a white supremacist dog whistle. And it was just a bunch of probably, teenagers with acne all over their face that were just like, wouldn't it be stupid if the media ran with this and thought that the OK sign was a white supremacist
And then
symbol?
said, hey, let's see if we can get them to do it.
I mean, if they can weaponize that, if they could do that and trick like all of establishment media to believe that, on social media, if you organize and you mobilize, you can get narratives out there that.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And you could totally fool these people.
Well, that was the thing with Pepe originally too.
Yes, Pepe as well.
Was the idea if the frog with the big white eyeballs? He was supposedly a symbol of white supremacy, and it's the same. I think it was on that one. Might have been on Reddit, or it could have been 4chan.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I remember the days before it was a alt-right symbol.
Yeah. He was never an alt-right thing. But some probably teenagers got together and said, "Hey, let's see. The media's a bunch of morons. Let's see if we can trick them into thinking this harmless green frog is actually a symbol of the alt-right and white supremacy." And the idiots bought it.
Yeah.
They bought it hook, line, and sinker.
And so you could have this same sort of process happen with, the DHS or whoever uses these tactics, and then they could just, look for everyone that's posting Pepe things or whatever the new meme is, and they could use that to, go back and target people. And it's just this is just a horrible way of going about it.
It's a horrible way of going about it, and I think sort of map this out over January 6th and maybe the days leading up to it. What would this have resulted in?
Yeah.
There were plenty of people who were legal protesters there. There were plenty of people who were legal protesters there. So all of a sudden you shut down. Presumably if this had worked the way they wanted it to, January 6th wouldn't have happened, which also would have meant that they would have shut down a bunch of legal protests. It's not clear to me that anybody has asked how they fix that problem. Additionally, if you're king of the world, Brian, and we all shudder at that thought, if you were king of the world,
that's going to be his title tomorrow.
And you have, that'll be his next title on the podcast, assistant to the king of the world, and you had this kind of power, would you be able to stop? Would you be able to say no to it? Would you be able to avoid using it? I mean, the ability to go out there and see what other people are saying about you and then just whoomp, kill it.
Oh gosh.
I mean, how could you say no to that?
Oh gosh, no. I firmly believe that, the old adage, absolute power corrupts absolutely. I firmly believe that because even from like a biblical worldview, the whole, like one of the big tentpole ideas is like we're all sinners, like we're all fallen. Like, I'd like to say that I'm a better person than to use such, systems against my enemies, but I am not.
Well, okay, so along those lines, Brian can't be trusted.
Yep.
Michael, can we trust any of our politicians today with this?
No, of course not.
None of us love Brian, but I still trust him a lot more than anybody else on Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
No. So could any of are those people somehow more trustworthy than Brian?
No, much less so. Yeah, absolutely. You cannot trust politicians. The more We need to give politicians as little control over our lives as possible. That would be the best government in the world. And, when you give them these big, they just push a big red button and they can just control everything. Yeah, they're going to take that every time. And whenever a government takes in more power, they usually like to keep it forever.
So let's transition then. Speaking of government power, speaking of government getting its way and then expecting to keep its way, let's talk about Dr. Fauci. He's back in the news.
Yes,
finally.
Masks are finally. He's gone for so long. Masks are back in the news.
Yes.
Tell us what's going on.
So about a week ago, it had been 100 days since Joe Biden told all of us, "Hey guys, I just need you to mask up for 100 days. Then this will be all behind us." And no, I guess he didn't quite get that right. So we still have to mask up. And then Fauci, he was on Meet the Press on Sunday. And Chuck Todd asked him, at what point can we stop wearing masks outside? At what point, if vaccinated people get together, do you take the masks off? Is mask wearing going to be something we have with us in a seasonal aspect? And then Fauci's response was, well, we should probably just keep masking up forever. because we didn't have any flu cases last year.
No, was that his reason? I haven't read the story yet. Was
Yeah.
that his reasoning? It wasn't that they were all freaking misreported as COVID-19?
I think people have gotten used to the fact that wearing this is Fauci, that wearing masks clearly, if you look at the data, diminishes respiratory diseases. We've had practically a non-existent flu season
You
this
charlatan! You are an intellectual fraud.
merely because people were doing the kinds of public health things that were directed predominantly against COVID-19.
No, that is not true. Then why in the
Yeah.
world do Asian countries still experience the flu? If masks take care of it, tell our official representative from the Asian peoples, Brian Chai, if masks fix the flu, why do we still see flu in Asian countries? I demand you answer this right now.
Oh, it's not called the flu in Asia.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
Semantic argument. All right, fair enough. Fair enough. That's so intellectually bankrupt and dishonest and corrupt. They were all reported as COVID.
But even if, let's just say
That
that they
little
did, they did report them as flu cases. This kind of logic, this kind of thinking that they keep rolling out. That look, if we can save any lives, it is worth doing this one thing or that one thing. So if they could find any evidence that if everyone wears masks, it saves 1% of all deaths to the flu, then they're gonna support it and they're gonna tell everyone, yeah, you need to wear masks all the time
To save a life.
to save a life, to save that one life. So
Interesting how that argument doesn't work when we're talking about like abortion or something.
Just
Or-
thinking that.
well,
Just
there's
thinking
lots
that.
of things. Yeah, there's lots of things that
sugar
it doesn't apply to.
consumption, marijuana usage, drug usage.
Well, drug
in
usage would
general.
be a big one.
There was there was a big paper written in economics. I think it was back in the 70s that argued you could essentially bring automobile deaths. You could essentially decrease the number
Yes.
to zero if you simply installed a giant sharp spike into the steering wheel, such that if you have an accident, you are likely to impale yourself. That would provide people incentive,
you really
and that
gotta
would
pay
save
attention.
lives.
One of
It
our
would save lives.
commentary writers at the Western Journal, Samantha Chang, she's puts out fantastic work for us. She wrote about this for us, and she said, for the record, never leaving your house could potentially reduce your chances of getting hit by a car, but no one would consider that a useful health tip.
That's good. And is there anything more fundamental to human existence than just breathing, just taking a breath of air? I mean, this is so grim and gruesome in a. I'm not even sure the term for it, but it's this idea that you're having to moderate the thing that keeps you alive.
Well, my thoughts on this were,
Out of fear of dying.
At
It's
the
very
heat of the pandemic, obviously, COVID was very dangerous for, the older population, for people that were super at high risk. That was a small subset of the population, but they were at extreme risk. During the time when it was going around like crazy, I was totally fine with wearing a mask. I had no problem with that. But now, everybody that's in danger is getting the vaccine or has the option to. Wearing masks at this point is ridiculous. And the even more ridiculous is the fact that Fauci recommends that children wear masks, even when they're outside. And we know that children have like 0 chance of dying of the disease. And it's not. I think there's been lots of doctors that have advised against children wearing the mask because, you know, they do have a harder time breathing than like full-grown adults.
Yeah.
And besides all of that, just like the social aspect of it, like, I mean, we've all gone lots of places where masks are mandated, you know, in public in the past year. And it's just you cannot have a meaningful interaction with someone if you cannot read their facial expressions. You know, that has weighed on me a lot. You know, I go to these places and, you know, I'm a pretty quiet guy, but sometimes I try to like make a connection with someone, and it is almost impossible.
Does your fiance know about this?
Not that kind of connection, Brian. Emma, I swear. We're getting married in 3 weeks, Brian. I don't know why you'd throw me under the bus like that now. But
Emma,
what was I even talking about? I feel like I just got hit by a bus. Anyway,
You're talking about you were talking about all of the meaningful social interactions that you don't have with
and those are costs that like we can't weigh. We can't exactly weigh what those costs are. And people at the CDC, people like Anthony Fauci, they have expertise in one particular area, but they don't have the ability to make a judgment call that's going to affect all of society in such a broad way. And, you know, if people want to wear masks, I'm fine if you wear a mask, but what they're creating is a culture that sincerely believes that unless you wear a mask, you are killing people. And that's insane.
Yeah, this is interesting. I remember discussing with my dad after his parents died. We were talking about kind of the nature of medicine today, and that it just seems to be in doctors to want to keep you alive no matter what. The quality of life really does not matter. It is simply keep your heart beating. And you know, I don't think that's a great way to live for some folks a lot of the time. But when you lose somebody whose entire goal is to keep you alive on someone else, that they'll find ways to keep you alive that make you just utterly miserable. And I mean, this is just a truly. And honestly, we think this is bad. This is a benign example of what the government can do once it starts taking responsibility for health and health outcomes. Oh, wearing a mask, believe me, that's not going to be nearly as bad as, you know, mandatory colonoscopies when you're 20.
Yeah.
And I do see this as an example of like the government flexing its muscles and just saying, what we say, that's what's going to save everyone. No matter what the facts are, we're just going to get like one expert out there. We're going to get our team of experts at the CDC that know like these, you know, this subset of the facts, and we're gonna rule you based on that.
Well, and this is you should have you should have lawmakers and statesmen who then come in, hear what the doctors have to say, and then figure out how to apply that based on what the best they can tell the people want, how the people would want their lives to be changed. But you don't. Instead, they just abdicate that responsibility to the supposed expert class, and the expert class is just going to, you know, you give somebody power, they're going to exercise it. Somebody has a hammer, all they're going to see is nails.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to Dr. Fauci, it is, I've long had this theory, and I don't think I've ever shared it with you guys, but I guess I'll do it right now on WJ Live. I think the only reason Fauci's rise to prominence was as pronounced as it was is because he was, to my anecdotal recollection, the first Trump admin guy who publicly rebuked Trump.
Oh,
like,
that's an
he is
interesting,
the first.
that's an interesting theory.
Yeah, I'm not, again, purely anecdotal, but as far as I can tell, but that's just my 2 cents on Fauci. About why, I mean, I don't understand it. I saw an action figure of his a few weeks ago, and I almost bought it just to do something with it. But I was like, I don't want to spend $20.
A $20 action figure?
$15.99. It was fully posable.
A $16 fully posable action figure of an intellectual sellout. That is remarkable. You know, I don't know that he was the first to openly disagree with the president, but he was unbelievably useful because Mattis and H.R. McMaster and those guys, there was no excuse to keep them in front of the public day in, day out. Fauci, though, the media had a perfect excuse to keep. That's really interesting,
Yeah.
Brian. They had a perfect excuse to keep Fauci in front of the public.
And I will say real quick, just on masks, I think me personally, if like a private business asks me to wear a mask, that doesn't bug me too much. It's sort of like, I mean, if you want to run the risk of alienating your customers, then that's your decision. Yeah, it's your business. Fine. I will make the ultimate decision whether or not I want to be a patron at your business because of your mask mandate. And again, like that, I have no problem. If people want to wear masks, like Mike said, let them go ahead, wear masks. The thing that bothers me is one, the government telling people what to do.
Yeah.
That is not okay. That is the first step to something much more dystopian. And two, I actually do wear masks still all the time. I almost don't wear them because of the insane fervor you get from like the pro-mask crowd. Like it's like a cult. And I'm like, listen, like I will wear this because I think it might protect me, my wife, my kid, whatever. Like this is a personal decision I'm making. I don't want the government making it for me. But if I decide not to wear it, like I don't want people coming at me trying to shame me, and that's what it feels. That's my biggest problem with this mask subculture.
And on that,
shaming.
the left loves to every now and then show a video of like an anti-masker person going on a huge tirade, but that's like a huge percentage of pro-mask people act in that way if you do not do what they want you to.
Yeah.
Like it is so
1,000%.
disproportionate.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah.
So that's good discussion there, and we wish Michael good luck as he continues to try to have meaningful interactions,
Connections.
connections with women while he has to wear his mask.
Getting married in 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Dang, Mike. Just because your fiance's in a different area code.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Stop this. This is ridiculous.
So, moving on, as entertaining as this has been, let's talk about entertainment itself. Elon Musk hosted SNL over the weekend. Dogecoin
Did not blow up.
dipped a little, I guess.
Go back to Bitcoin.
This somehow resulted in a conversation about wokeness, and Dave Chappelle weighed in. So
Dave Chappelle basically just kind of opened up. So Elon Musk hosted SNL this past Saturday, May 8th. I went ahead and watched it. I was curious, because of all the controversy surrounding it. It was fine. SNL is clearly not the show it once was, but ultimately, I left thinking kind of shrugging my shoulders. Elon Musk hosted, cool. I went back and I actually looked at some of the stories leading up to Saturday's episode, and you think Elon Musk was like the Antichrist? Like it is.
I do not understand what happened.
I don't either, but SNL literally told some of his cast members, you don't have to perform if you are uncomfortable
With
sharing
Elon. With
yeah,
Elon.
sharing a
Why
stage with
Elon?
He's capitalist.
Capitalist.
He's
Yeah,
openly
he's a capitalist.
anti-communist.
And he left California.
He
Anti-socialist.
left California, and say what you will of Elon Musk, but the guy's an independent thinker, and that is something the left cannot stand. Period. So, anyways, I watched the episode. It was fine. I didn't think much of it, but a lot of people were upset, which prompted Dave Chappelle, who appeared on the Joe Rogan podcast. And here is a quote from Chappelle that I want to read to you guys. It really stuck with me. So Chappelle says, like you said, no one can be woke enough. I'm torn because I like a warrior for a good cause, but I'm really into tactics. You're not going to nag people into behaving. In fact, if you continue with this tone, even if you're right, you'll be very hard to hear. And that quote really got me thinking just about the general state of wokeness, the way we kind of approach things in today's society, in today's if you have a thought, literally millions of people across the globe can hear your thought like that, and that's a world we've never lived in before. So
turns out it's a horrible one.
Yes, it's kind of a scary place. So based on that quote, just sort of the idea of, in fact, if you continue with this tone, even if you're right, you'll be very hard to hear. Do you think this advice can ever be applied to conservatives and Republicans? Because that quote did make me think, when it comes to messaging, and I know this is a little kind of away from Elon, but this made me think, and I want to hash it out with you guys.
Yeah, on either side of the spectrum, narratives are really important, and emotionally compelling narratives are the best. And when you know, the conservatives, we nag in a way too, but just kind of with facts, and we just say, well, that doesn't work, well, this doesn't do that. And you know, when it comes to socialism, you know, we say, oh, well, that's never worked, you're stupid. But what we should be saying is, well, whether it works or not, it is wrong for the government to take your money, to take all the time you put into your work, to take that and to decide what to do with that. You're essentially the slave of the government. You know, those are the kind of arguments we need to be making. We need to be making emotionally compelling, you know, narratives. We need to be putting those out there. When instead, yeah, we tend to just, you know, harp on the same points, just like the left is now. But, you know, the left is definitely gone way overboard in a way that we never have. So
I don't know the exact answer to this. Part of me thinks about Reagan's Morning in America campaign. You know, that was not a naggy, preachy kind of thing. That was an optimistic take on America. Then I think about Trump's MAGA campaign and the AGA part of that. You know, that was positive, but it was also mixed with a whole lot of negative. Trump saying, look, we're just getting our clocks cleaned by the Chinese.
Yeah.
It's a bad deal. It's a bad shake and all of that. So I don't know. And then as you were reading it, I was thinking about the culture wars over the last, 30 years or so, and thinking about how maybe the easiest place to see the progress of the cultural left has been in the acceptance of homosexuality. And to see how they have weaved it into the culture, and they haven't been naggy with it. They've been cute with it and funny with it and campy with it.
I certainly struggle with cute and funny.
Well, I love old TV too, and you can really see, it's so funny. You can see just tiny hints of it in the 60s, and then open mentions of it in the 70s, and then it becomes a plot point in the 80s. And then in the 90s, you've got Will and Grace, and then it's just more and more and more. And so they did it by making people laugh at it.
Interesting.
And I had a friend who used to say, laughter's super dangerous because once you've made somebody laugh at something, they can never take it as seriously again. And so, yeah, I think poking fun at, which is what Chappelle does, is maybe the deadliest way to do these things. And maybe, I don't know how effective nagging is. I do think humor is unbelievably useful as far as things like this go. I'm sorry, I'm thinking this out as we're talking.
No,
and I don't have an answer to it. I'm not sure.
And that's 100% right. And that's something I've always actually kind of thought about from a conservative standpoint. Like when you think of like liberal comedians, you could, go blue in the face naming all of them. You talk about conservative comedians, it's like crickets. Like, there's Steven Crowder, Greg Gutfeld, I guess, if you want to call him funny.
Nick
but it's like...
Is Tom Shalhoub alive?
I don't know.
I saw that he passed away, but maybe he's just older. Sorry, Tom.
But yeah, so like the sense of humor thing, that's true. And it's funny that you brought up the culture war, Josh, because that is probably the last thing I want to touch on. Bringing this back to just wokeness in America. It feels, I'm just going to be like on a personal level. This is just me speaking personally. There are times where it feels really hopeless when you see the wokeness in America. Like it isn't just like, this isn't like a fringe narrative. Like this is like mainstream. This is infecting everything from like sports to entertainment to, video game, whatever, like any platform that used to be apolitical is now kind of drawn in because of wokeness. Like that's just
shut up and take it.
Yep, exactly. So, given that just kind of like impending sense of dread I have about wokeness, I did want to kind of ask, like, what's the answer to this? Because it feels so hopeless. Like it feels like I think the culture wars are still very much ongoing, and I think they will be for a while. But the pessimist in me is like, it's over. Like you just see the wokeness running so rampant, and it's just like, it's over. They won the culture war.
It's a big topic.
Yeah, Yeah, so essentially, like, just kind of like, I wanted to hear you guys' thoughts on wokeness in America.
Yeah.
Where you think it's headed? Can it be salvaged? Is it too late? Like, what do you think, man?
I think a lot. It certainly does feel hopeless, and they have seized a lot of narratives. But I think a lot of times in politics, the pendulum does swing back and forth, and it's certainly going to a really far extreme right now. But I think that could mean it's going to come back real hard and real fast. And we see this with the fact that so many like people that 5 years ago would have been diehard liberals are starting to move over to the conservative side. We got a lot. We're building a strong coalition of intellectuals that all kind of hate the woke left. And in addition to that, all this stuff that's happening in schools with wokeness and critical race theory and gender theory, parents are getting stuck up with it. People might be afraid to say anything, but I definitely see a big wave coming back against it, for sure.
Yeah, I do think there's a pendular action that's happening with all of this. And that what you're saying is exactly right, Michael.
Yeah.
And it will swing back. And the booth was telling me to speak into my mic, so I decided to defy them. Sorry. That was Kayla doing it. I bet anything. That was Kayla. Yeah, so honest, I don't know. Now they're sending us other messages on the
They're
screen.
giving us another message.
That is not a nice word. That is not nice to say. Sorry. But anyway, the problem that I have is the thing that I'm worried about is that, a group of people is getting very frustrated with the wokeness.
Yeah.
But there is also a seemingly large group, who can say for sure, that is doubling down on it. And it goes back to this cultural divide that I cannot figure out outside of revival or a realignment of the states. I can't figure out how we solve it. We decreasingly have anything in common.
It's crazy.
And so I don't know how we.
Well, I
do
think
that.
it's revival for sure. So, yeah.
It's the only thing we can hope.
And we're about due for a good
Yeah.
revival, so it makes sense to me.
It's it is tough to see, and especially I will say one actionable thing that I think all conservatives and Republicans can do when it comes to wokeness is just calling out when you see it, but doing so in like a way that's actually trying to be engaging, as opposed to just like me and Michael actually earlier today were talking about Disney is pushing Gina Carano for best supporting actress.
Yeah, talk about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of like the intellectual dishonesty that should be readily apparent. But I feel like when conservatives come in and just point it out, leftists are like, whoa, hey. As opposed to like, because I've actually tried to go on Twitter and have these conversations, and that's a terrible idea. Don't go to Twitter to have civil conversations.
Is vocational rape a thing? Because that's what this feels like. Like they totally messed her up, and now they are trying to gain from her. They are trying to use her.
If they really
to get an
believed
Emmy
she was all the things
or a
they
Golden
called her,
Globe,
if they really
whatever.
believed she was all the things they called her, that she was denigrating people's cultures and
but
ethnic
we'll still
identities,
take your award.
they would not be accepting awards on her behalf. So.
Well, and if they believe that, they wouldn't be doing business in China, and they wouldn't be cool
there's
with
a
a lot of this
whole
stuff.
thing there. Yeah.
All right. That's it for us today, folks. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. For Michael and Brian, I'm Josh Manning. We're here every Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Went back to the old schedule. We're here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to click subscribe, then click the little bell. If you feel like supporting us in a more direct way, we value and appreciate you and would love to partner with you to help get the truth out. You can go to westernjournal.com/join. That's westernjournal.com/join. That's it for us. Hope you have a wonderful week. We're going to see you here again Wednesday, 5 Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Till then, be safe. Take care. Bye.
Josh, did you hear? They're putting the Libertarian back on the podcast.
No.
Oh? You didn't see the calendar?
No.
You should talk to Kayla about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, who's on the show Tuesday?
You and Joe.
Yeah. Like he's back.
Yeah, no, you and Joe. You
The
should
Libertarian?
Yeah, Libertarian Joe.
He's not back.
You should just go in the studio and check it out.
You're messing with me.
Okay.
Okay. Nice joke, Kayla. Come here to go to the studio. No!